Reverend George Hicks, a Presbyterian minister, was appointed honorary chaplain. As would be, romance blossomed, as well as including the marriage of Lillian Bodden, daughter of Captain Rail and Chief Warrant Officer Jack Howard. However, tensions did occasionally rise, especially if the young Caymanian women were overly friendly to the Americans. On several occasions, fights between the Caymanian men and American military would break out near the town hall, with the most serious incident taking place in December 1943 when 40 of the Caymanian men were home on leave.
We are telling you ahead of time, giving you the heads up to get ready. The black tie affair with a circus twist. Step right up. The annual gala hosted by Rotary Central for the Alex Panton Foundation. Saturday, May 29th, Marriott Beach Hotel Ballroom. Step right up. Support the Alex Panton Foundation, dedicated to serving and preserving young people through vulnerable times, mental health intervention, treatment, guidance, preserving life. The ambience of a circus affair. Tickets are limited, tickets are precious. Get your tickets from Rotary Central members. Go online to Rotary Central and the Alex Panton Foundation Facebook pages. Rotary Central and the Alex Panton Foundation. Rotary opens opportunity.
Radio Cayman's Historical Vignettes was brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for joining us. And when I say us, I mean DJ Lynn on the other side of the board making things happen so we can have a great conversation. We'll start things off with our great friends from the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens. We're going to tell you about a health fair. We got excellent physicians joining us. And then 12:45 until we got to talk about some election day coverage, some post-political commentary. We might even have a little bit of surprises for you. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. And Royal Fidelity Bank and Trust, money at work.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And again, a special thanks to join us last evening as we brought you the coverage. But now we want you to continue to focus on what is truly important to us, our health and well-being. We're always grateful to partner with our friends over at the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens. I say this always, and I'll say it publicly again, that they are, the pioneers. They were the champions initially regarding, education, when they talked about breast cancer. They were the ones who have set the stage and allowed us as a people to now have all of these ongoing conversations in a very public forum. So to Miss Maxine Bravo and all of you fellow Lions in all the clubs around, thank you so much. So good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, listening audience. Thank you very much, Dwayne.
It's a pleasure again to come into studio and to inform the public what our event is this weekend. On the 17th of April at 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. we will have a health fair, and this is in collaboration with the Lions Club of Grand Cayman, CEDA, which is the Cayman Islands Diabetes Association, Doctors Hospital. We'll be giving away free ECG screening, PSA, vision screening, A1c glucose testing. No fasting will be required. Free diabetes counseling, free glucometers, and this will be given to the first 50 persons who are in need. Nutritional talks, cardiology consultation, and heart and diabetes talks. The time again is at 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. and this will take place at the Lions Community Center.
Okay, and certainly this is where I think that growing partnership, whether it's through our community organizations or service clubs, but our physicians. And joining us equally, we have Dr. Bernard and Dr. Kukula. With great deference to Dr. Kukula, perhaps initially to you, Dr. Bernard, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you for inviting us to the show. I'm representing the Cayman Islands Diabetes Association. We're partnering with the Lions Club with this health fair. Our main object is to create awareness and education to the community in regards to diabetes.
And maybe at some point we can probably just remind our people about diabetes and how it seems very prevalent within our community, and how we as a people probably don't appreciate diet, exercise, and our lifestyle can impact it. But we need to manage it more effectively. So this Saturday is that added opportunity to take control over health, to be our own best champions, right?
Yes, definitely. Diabetes is a global healthcare challenge in this 21st century, definitely. Our aim is to create awareness of the people so they can take charge of their health. There are two main things that they can focus in to improve it, which is changes in lifestyle and diet, which, as we know, in our Caribbean diet is not too healthy, and that is one of our main factors to the increased prevalence of diabetes.
A lifestyle and a diet. Dr. Kula, welcome, and thank you for joining us. Please,
thank you very much for the invitation.
When we look at, as your colleague Dr. Bernard shared, lifestyle or diet, the choices we make, sometimes we don't appreciate, just as ordinary citizens, how that affect us, the quality of our life. Not just adding years to our life, but life to our years. As physicians, you see that all the time, and you tell us as we come into your clinics, but we rarely listen, seemingly.
Well, that's very true. Unfortunately, especially in case of diabetes, we see, I would say, a striking relation of life quality and life expectancy to our lifestyle. Recent data, for example, finally prove what we have suspected for a number of years, that if we change our lifestyle, normalize our body weight, then actually we can cure our diabetes without any additional medications very often. So diabetes is a global epidemic, much more serious perhaps in terms of death rate, in terms of burden to healthcare worldwide than the current COVID epidemic even, because hundreds of millions of people a year die from diabetes, and around 10% of the world's population is affected. Wow. And this actually a disease which can in many cases be cured simply by normalizing our lifestyle, by normalizing our body weight, by improving our health habits. So actually, without any medications, you can very often get rid of your diabetes and increase your lifespan, increase the quality of life, and avoid complications, which in case of long-lasting diabetes may be catastrophic.
And I want to ask you more about it, because you're sharing, and this is something whenever we look at the impact to our own lives, our society, the cost to the economy, the cost to the country, the cost to the healthcare system relative to, say, just diabetes, it's astounding, almost incalculable. But I guess economists have been able to put together some numbers, the loss in productive hours, the impact and the burden to the healthcare system. But yet, as you shared, we're focusing this book on the COVID, and there's quarantines everywhere. But lifestyle changes, or diet, or exercise, if we were to do that, just reducing that impact relative to diabetes, how much better people would be, how much longer they would live, how much, perhaps don't want to make it be insensitive, but how much cheaper and more affordable and accessible the other healthcare systems would be for the rest of us with other things. Are we, when we're talking about curing and preventing and even reducing, does it matter if it's type 1 or type 2, or we could change our lifestyle and have a very positive impact on our outcomes if we are diabetic? Does it matter type 1 or type 2? And maybe remind us, what is the difference, if there is any? Dr. Kakulo?
Sure. Well, all that we were actually talking about right now pertains to type 2 diabetes mostly. That's the global epidemic. The prevalence of type 1 diabetes remains, despite this being a very serious disease, it remains just about constant. So about 90 to 96% of diabetes is type 2 diabetes. Only a few percent is actually type 1 diabetes, which is a very serious disease because it affects often young people. It requires from the onset the use of insulin. It has very severe long-term complications in terms of cardiovascular complications, neurological complications, ophthalmological complications. You can use your eyesight, you can go on dialysis, you can have stroke, you can have heart attack. So those are all the complications that we see in type 1 diabetes. We see them in type 2 diabetes as well. But from the point of view of resources allocated and the prevalence, the biggest or a bigger healthcare burden and healthcare problem in terms of epidemics is certainly type 2 diabetes. The mechanisms of both conditions are very different. The consequences are similar, but of course, as usually over 90% of people have type 2 diabetes, we tend to generalize, and when we speak about all those complications and healthcare burdens, we actually speak and lifestyle, we actually speak mostly of type 2 diabetes because type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. We cannot do very much to change its course just by lifestyle changes. But type 2 diabetes is a completely different disease in terms of etiology, and here lifestyle has paramount significance.
Okay. So when we come back from the break, unless Dr. Bernard wishes to weigh in now, please. Okay, after the break, we'll want to talk more about it and signs and symptoms, but we also want to talk about the health fair. I mean, it's at Lions Center comes Saturday. It's the 17th, 3 to 7 p.m. Hopefully a convenient time for us, so we can draw on board. Imagine if I was campaigning. Just kidding. All right, when we come back, more talk today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
We are in an age of exponential change. The world is experiencing a technology boom where innovation is at an all-time high. What does this mean for small island nations? How can we adapt to the emerging digital revolution? Join 900 delegates from 3 Caribbean countries at one regional event to tackle the theme, Global Digital Disruption, Threat or Opportunity. The virtual RF Economic Outlook Conference happens on May 6th. Register today at rfeoc.com.
Bacardi presents One Love Legends of Reggae Concert. Friday, April 16th at Coral Beach from 4 p.m. featuring Mr. Notch and Local Motion 345. Erica Assad, Bonafide K-Man, Janny Lou, and DJ Craig. Free entry all night. VIP $25 at eventpro.ky. One Love is brought to you by Bacardi, the Ministry of Health, Environment, Culture and Housing, Coral Beach, Burger Shack, Cayman Islands Department of Tourism, Supermix, Caymanian Times, and Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And in the studio, Miss Maxine Bravo from the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens. We have the Dr. Bernard, together with Dr. Kula. And this notion of speaking to our health and well-being, the idea that diabetes in particular is not just prevalent globally or regionally, but right here within our shores. And those of us who are family members or ourselves, we can see the consequence firsthand, the cost to the economy, the cost to the healthcare system, but the effect on our quality of life. So to the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens in particular, whether it's the breast cancer awareness or all the other things, your partnership with the Diabetes Association and others speaks volumes for what we're doing relative to championing our own health and well-being. So you must be commended together with your...
Thank you for that, Dwayne. Just to say that CEDA has always been our cornerstone in diabetic testing, and even if we don't have a health fair, CEDA is always there. So we normally do it during November, but this year, 2020 was a little bit different.
2020 did not exist.
Right, kick 2020 to the curb, right?
Yeah.
So for this year, 2021, we want to engage the public to become even more aware of the consequences of diabetes. Even if you think you have a little sugar level that needs to be tested, come on out and be tested. Again, we will be there from 3 to 7 at the Lions Center, Community Center. And for those persons who are unsure of where that is located, it's right next door to King's Gym, right? When you're heading east from Georgetown. We also will have ECG testing again and vision screening. We'll also have PSA testing, that's for prostate.
Just for the men, right? The PSA?
Yes.
Okay, that's right. Sorry.
And
are you seriously? See, Maxine?
Dwayne is fanning. He's like, oh Lord, do I need to do this? Yes, Dwayne, you need to do it. And the earlier you do it, the better it is. Yes. We want to recognize our sponsors for the event. Our sponsors are JWD Medical Suppliers, Doctors Hospital, CEDA, Grand Cayman Lions Club, our Corporate Solution, Tamara Walpole, who will be our nutritional therapist, and Helkill Molson, who will represent the Rotary Club. So it's a really good combination of persons. And if you know what we normally do for the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens, we normally do it in November, and there is always a number of persons who show up. So again, the first come, first serve persons who are in need of glucometers will be handed one.
Right. This Saturday, 3 to 7 at the Lions, so across on the First Baptist Church. You can't miss it.
Yes, and we've done that timeline to give persons the opportunity to go to church. For those persons who are Seventh-day Adventists, you can go to church, finish your day, and come on out.
You can get it before you go to AY, so you're all good.
Yes.
If I may ask, thank you, Ms. Maxine, to both Dr. Bernard and Dr. Kula, the idea that we may or may not see signs and symptoms relative to diabetes. Are there any things in particular we should, whether we have it in our families, whether we just work with people, or is it just a good practice normally as part of your regular checkups to screen? Are there things that we should know as people when it comes to managing our health, being cognizant of whether we should be at least aware of diabetes and its impact? Dr. Bernard?
Correct. So diabetes, we have some factors that will affect us, which we cannot change, such as our family history. In race line, African American, Asian is Indian people have a high prevalence of diabetes. There are symptoms that can suggest that should call your attention, and at least get tested, go to the doctor and see what's going on, which is having excessive thirst, dry mouth, frequent urination, lack of energy, tiredness, slow healing wounds should call attention, mostly if you have the family history, that should bring a bell mostly for you. Blurred vision, recurrent infections, tingling, numbness of your hands and feet is very frequent. This being said, these symptoms can be mild or sometimes absent. So it's important that when you do at least your annual medical check, you should request from your doctor to get screened for diabetes.
What are those checks when we go for the annual check? I mean, we heard about A1c and then glucose fasting, but which one, if any one, are there other ones?
Okay. The A1c testing has been recognized by the International Diabetes Federation as the screening test for diabetes.
Okay, and that does not require fasting?
It does not require fasting. What the A1c test does is the excess of sugar that our body, we intake from our body, metabolize and is not necessary. It's stored, bind to the red blood cells. Our red blood cells live for 120 days, so that's 3 months. So that's the average of the sugar in our body that we are measuring with the A1c test. So it doesn't get affected by what we had ate yesterday or what we eat this morning. It's just a number of the media of our blood sugar over the past 2-3 months.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's worthwhile noting because some of us may try to trick ourselves, right?
Yes.
We'll do a fasting test.
Yeah, that's different from the fasting test, yes.
All right. Dr. Kula, if you wanted to weigh in, share with us.
Yes, well, especially type 2 diabetes is an extremely insidious disease. The symptoms that Dr. Rina just described may, of course, occur in type 2 diabetes, but they are seen much earlier on in case of type 1 diabetes or in people who already have well-developed type 2 diabetes. So a lot of people with type 2 diabetes will simply have increased body weight, will simply have mild hypertension and no other symptoms of diabetes. And I have just described a significant part of the population, I think. So most people have really need to be actually screened for diabetes, because once they develop the symptoms that Dr. Bernard just told us about, it's pretty late in the course of disease, especially in the course of type 2 diabetes. An average time of diagnosis of type 2 diabetes is about 10 years from its onset. And then you actually have time to already have complications of type 2 diabetes, such as coronary artery disease, stroke, maybe proteinuria in the course of developing kidney failure, some neurological deficits, some eye changes, and a lot of bad things that we don't want to have, which develop in the course of type 2 diabetes, especially quickly when it's untreated.
If we could answer that, because you referenced earlier that it can be cured, we could read, is it reversible? Right?
Is it cured or controlled?
Well, good question. Cured or controlled?
It can be both,
okay.
Actually.
All right.
So there are a lot of lifestyle changes very rarely cure diabetes because they are very rarely actual lifestyle changes. We talk about them. We encourage patients to introduce them, but the adherence to actual lifestyle changes is, well, not very good.
We're not disciplined enough sometimes.
Exactly.
Right?
So because if you want to cure type 2 diabetes, which you can early on simply with lifestyle changes, they have to be meaningful. So you have to absolutely normalize your body weight, not just reduce it a little bit, completely normalize your body weight and change your diet to something that we call low glycemic index diet. Basically, we need to eat vegetables and that's it. And we need a lot of exercise. So most people don't succeed in such comprehensive lifestyle changes. But if they do go on this path at least part way, we can help them to control their diabetes with medications. The goal of which is not really to lower their blood sugar, but to prevent the complications of diabetes. And there are a number of medications like that, not all of them simply related to blood sugar control.
If we could then ask a hypothetical. So you referenced that it's probably 10 years hence from the onset that we may be manifested. So that person is 10, 15 years later and they're seeing this and they come in and they're serious, managing, curing, reversing, lifestyle changes, so they're exercising, they're following the physician's guidelines, they're eating the vegetables, they're very significant, they've managed their BMI, they've repurposed their body in a sense. What, if any, positive impact on the organs, the kidneys, the eyes, and the leg? Would they be noticeable, or is it, what you waited so long, might be a little bit more difficult or impossible?
Absolutely. Their risk level returns to baseline. Okay. So they can prevent this way the whole multitude of complications of diabetes, because we don't treat or we don't speak and we're not talking right now about diabetes because it causes high blood sugar. We're not talking about diabetes because it's some kind of an abnormality that we don't like. We're talking about diabetes because its death toll is so great.
Dr. Bernard, if I may ask, I don't know the parlance in other parts of the world, but I'm familiar with it here in Cayman, and it's probably the same in the region. It's borderline. I just got a touch of sugar. Those are little things that we hear. I just got a touch. Are those things that we should be concerned about? But it's just a touch. Would you help us to understand that, maybe its significance?
Yes, definitely. It's very important. That's the point where we can take a grip of it. That's in the range that we call pre-diabetes.
Okay, pre-diabetes.
Which is yes, it's a range of, when we test on our A1c, between 5.7 and 6.4. We take in account all other factors, your family history, your weight, your physical activity. Those things are your risk factors.
Okay.
That's great to find you in that range, because that's where these lifestyle diet changes and exercise will make a good impact, definitely.
So 5.7 to 6.4 on the A1c.
On the A1c.
So then, for that normal range, that normal person, if I can put it that way, do they have a good lifestyle, exercising, eating in moderation, eating the right things, and they get their test? If their range is, I don't know, well, what would be a good range for them to say, you know what, this looks good? So obviously better than 5.7.
Below 5.7.
So 5.6 would be okay? 5.5?
5.5, 5.4.
Okay. No, we're not talking about height people, okay.
I was about to ask if you're asking about your...
That's a percentage. It's given in a percent. 5%, 5%, 5%, 6%.
There's a little bit of honey makes the medicine go down, but that's diabetic proof honey. No, I think this is where these sort of screenings, health fairs, in collaboration with many of the organizations, but the physicians help us, Maxine, to appreciate it. Many times we don't see the importance of it, and we're so busy that it doesn't affect us. We like make an excuse for something. So
not only that, there are a number of persons in the community who is unable to afford a visit to the doctor because their wellness packages probably has been exhausted throughout the year. And so we present these sorts of assistance to the community so that they can come out and get checked. Don't be afraid to come out and, ask the questions, burning questions. What are some of the signs and symptoms that I should look forward to? How do I speak to my doctor about this? And education is key. Now, I know that the doctors have been saying, change your lifestyle, eat right, and all of that. But a number of persons cannot afford the healthy lifestyle. What would you suggest, doctors?
Well, generally, economy plays a great role in today's medicine. We know that basically people who are well-to-do are also healthier because they can afford a lot of things that affect lifestyle. They see their doctors more frequently, so they can be led to reduce their risk of certain medications. They have prophylactic treatments. So if, for example, should they have cancer, they're more likely to have it discovered earlier on. And it's the same with diabetes and with other conditions, that they're simply also more aware of their health risks and more aware of their importance and how to counteract them. So it has a lot to do with unfortunately money, with education, and with simply being aware of the importance of some interventions. Well, that's something we cannot change in this world, I guess. It will always remain so to some extent, and that's why any exposure of the public to things like prophylaxis of diabetes, which is available and affordable to everyone, is so important. Of course, it is not so that you actually need to be a wealthy person to behave proactively in terms of risk of diabetes, because a lot about the prevention of diabetes or treatment of diabetes is having less of something and not more of something. So, of course, the profile of our diet in terms of things we choose is important, but also the amount of the things we choose is extremely important. So, actually, diabetes is a democratic disease in this respect, and you can actually save some money being proactive in treating your diabetes and not instead of spending it.
Right. Well, we want to thank you sincerely for giving yourself and your patients for allowing you to step away from your clinics for a second. But as we close up, perhaps Dr. Bernard, any maybe final points you may want to leave, any advice, any words you want to share with our listeners?
Maybe just a key point. When we say exercise, we're not telling you need to go to a gym and spend X money to be there active. We are just a simple exercise of just brief walking every day. In early morning, early evening, when the sun is done, 30 minutes per day, a routine from Monday to Saturday. That is more than enough to start with and make a change in your life.
Well, actually, I compliment you. So it doesn't cost a lot, and it's very effective. Join us at the Boxing Association. Get great exercise, great company, and it doesn't cost a lot. That's fine. Right? It's an investment in our health.
Yes.
Dr. Kukula, if there's a final word that you may want to leave, then, of course, Ms. Maxine. Only if you wish, sir.
Yeah, well, just a few ending words. Indeed, treating your diabetes is, maybe as simple as and money saving, because if you, for example, bicycle to work, or walk to work and have half the steak you are usually having, or 1/3 of the portion of jerk chicken that you're having, and less rice. Well, that's actually saving money and perhaps saving your life in the long term.
Lifestyle changes. Ms. Maxine now.
Again, reminding the listening public that our event takes place on the 17th of April at 3 p.m. Start time 3 p.m. Closes off at 7 p.m. Come on out and get your health checks done. Diabetes is a critical situation happening to just about anyone. Our sponsors. Thank you. JWD Medical Supplies, Doctors Hospital, Cedar, Grand Cayman Lands Club, Corporate Solutions, Tamara Walpole, Hellkill, Molson, and of course the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens. Look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Well, thank you all, and we would like to say thanks again to Dr. Bernard and Dr. Kula for joining us. We really appreciate it very much, and hopefully on Saturday it'll be a wonderful attendance of our community, understanding the importance of diabetes. May I invite you to enjoy the rest of the day, and as the weekend unfolds, well, it'll be a blessed and safe, productive one.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure. Let's pause and take a break, and when we come back, we'll see what happens. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Now you'll never have to choose between two desserts at Subway. The new caramel brownie cookie is 2 treats in 1. Imagine sweet, gooey caramel with decadent chocolate chunks baked in brownie-flavored dough and topped with a light drizzle of caramel icing. And you have the new caramel brownie cookie, available at Subway. Complete your Subway sandwich, pizza, or salad with the delicious caramel brownie cookie or any other cookie flavor and dessert. Available at all Subway locations. Subway, eat fresh.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
The 7 a.m. news Monday through Friday is proudly sponsored by CG Britke Insurance, Health, Pensions, Life, where people come first.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. There's going to be some open line at 1 o'clock, and thereafter, Mr. Steve Macfield and Mr. Loxell Banks, hopeful, will come in and join us, so we can just have a chat. I'm also, hopeful that Miss Maxine Borden, she's an incredible lady, extremely busy, and hopefully she'll be able to cover us a time and add some truly, truly informed commentary. But we know and respect that people's schedules change. But hey, let's go to the phones. Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you today?
Blessed and thankful. How about you, sir?
Same thing. God is good.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Yeah, I said I was hoping to get on with the doctors, but I guess they left already.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but I was talking with diabetes. There's a thing. I'm sure they know about it or should know about it. It's a thing called, for short, it's called HBOT. HBOT, and what it stands for is hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend Dr. Sears up in West Palm Beach, he's been using that for years to get rid of diabetes from people. All this metformin and all morphine or whatever they call it. He don't touch anything. Like, everything he does is like natural. He don't use nothing that's going to be give you any kind of side effects and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he cures people all the time with it. And it's all this is an oxygen therapy. And if your body is your body, your lungs and your blood and stuff is loaded with oxygen, you don't have to worry about any kind of disease. No, I don't care what it is, because you've got your protection from anything when your body is full of oxygen. That's it's you heard talking about the breath of life. That's what it is. It keeps you healthy, and 90% of the things that we take, it's all because, I mean, right now we hear the Johnson & Johnson putting out this vaccine now. It's supposed to be with this thing. Everybody's trying to make money, and nobody does the job like they're supposed to do. Got to make sure that as good as possible, that nothing is happening, side effects and stuff like that. And now you got to take it off the market, I understand, because it's giving blood clot. People getting blood clots in the brain and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, they just say that this is, large-scale human trial, so, maybe they got it right. But, to your point, though, I think we need to do two things, as the physicians shared, or we need to look at our lifestyle and be disciplined, or at least more disciplined. Our parents always tell us, everything is motivation. But we also, I think, need to avail ourselves of the training and the practice and expertise of our physicians. So just for instance, maybe the way the medical community is evolving, perhaps that bedside manner, as we call it, isn't there as it once was. The emphasis and reliance on technology as opposed to the skill sets of the person.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the thing is we used to, people still do it, but not in the so-called, the first world or first class countries that, the poor countries still use roots and fruits and flowers and leaves and stuff.
Well, they do, right? But also too, I mean, do we as people, and in particular, practitioners, seem to understand the practices of the ancients? For instance, you go to the physician and the nurse or the doctor, whether she's going to look at you and assess you based on just her experience, or is it going to be a case of, well, let's run some tests and let the technology do it, just like we're probably doing in our schools, let the technology teach the students. Maybe we're doing it in our businesses and let everything be automated as opposed to the human touch. Now, we are destroying the world, and perhaps it's the greed and the wanton and rapid destruction of the environment that may be killing us faster than perhaps other measures. But again, where are we in relation to being our brother's keeper and to sharing information as you're trying to impart as well?
I'm saying that's what I'm saying, Dwayne. The thing is that we have listened to the pharmaceutical companies, and 90% of the people in the world know today that everything about these pharmaceutical companies, they are the biggest business in the world. I think some have an average of about $157 billion a year that they make. Billion,
Yeah, I don't know what the number is percentage-wise or the dollar value, but it's probably not a small sum.
No, that's what I'm saying. This is information that comes from good sources. It's not me trying to make a guess at it.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is this: what has happened to the world today in years gone by, when a doctor took a Hippocratic oath, he swore to do everything he could to heal people and to make people think. Now, what has happened is the money comes into play. The pharmaceutical companies, the FDA, the CDC, all of them is a part of this group that is promoting all these things that are killing people. But by the time they got to court, and some of them might have to pay a couple of $100 billion or million or something like that. They've made so much money, it doesn't matter to them.
Well, I guess it comes down to what you share now. So it's having a conscience. My friend, I don't want to be disrespectful, but the news is almost about ready. Any quick thought you might want to leave? If not, we call it a day.
I just want to say that H-spot stuff is good. If somebody wants to use it, it gets rid of diabetes.
All right. Thanks, man. All the best to you this afternoon. We're going to pause and take a break, but we invite you to rejoin us right after the 1 p.m. headlines.
Continuing the Caymanian tradition.
Let Cora keep my ground so clean.
The soul of the Cayman people. Thank you for keeping the culture alive.
Spread the news every day. From East End to Georgetown, down into West Bay.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have here on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Shanda Gallego from Radio Cayman's newsroom. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce congratulates the newly elected members of Parliament. The council and staff look forward to working with them in the years ahead to address the many challenges and issues that are facing the islands. Turning to international news now, the Duke of Edinburgh's 4 children will walk alongside his coffin at his funeral on Saturday. Prince Charles, Andrew, Edward and Princess Anne, as well as grandsons Princes William and Harry, will walk alongside a modified Land Rover hearse to St. George's Chapel in Windsor. The guest list for the service includes 30 people with 3 German relatives. Those attending will be in mourning coats with medals or day dress, but not wear military uniform. The congregation will put on masks and socially distance in line with COVID lockdown rules, with the Queen seated alone. The ex-officer accused of killing George Floyd says he will not testify on his own behalf as the defense rests their case and court is adjourned. Derek Chauvin denies killing Mr. Floyd. Jurors are due to begin deliberating his fate on Monday morning. Video of Mr. Chauvin kneeling on the neck of Mr. Floyd led to worldwide protests against racism and policing. And the U.S. has announced sanctions against Russia in response to what it says are cyber attacks and other hostile acts. The measures, which target dozens of Russian entities and officials, aim to deter Russia's harmful foreign activities, the White House said. The statement says Russian intelligence was behind last year's massive SolarWinds hack and accuses Moscow of interference in the 2020 election. Russia denies all the allegations and says it will respond in kind. Those are your latest updates here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Things just got a bit hotter on the island. Come in today and order the new spicy Korean subs at Subway. They're sweet, spicy, and especially satisfying. Stop in and try the pulled pork with spicy Korean sauce, or the chicken with spicy Korean sauce. And you can message WhatsApp at 929-4658. Order online or use Let's Eat or the Bento app. The spicy Korean subs at Subway in 2 flavors, extra saucy and extra spicy. Subway, eat fresh.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thanks for joining us as we invite you to call and share your thoughts. So we don't have to talk about the elections or the election results. We can speculate, add some conjecture. We can, even pontificate if you so choose. But we can talk about other things. Maybe you might want to say, well, hey, during the campaigns, whether those ones that just concluded or ones prior, all these things were talked about. You might even be reminded that the issues discussed today were probably discussed 10 years ago or 40 years ago, or even longer. And you may ask, well, when are we going to get to offering up some solutions and resolving some of these issues? You may just want to congratulate and celebrate. You may want to be, well, on the flip side of that, huh? But I want to be positive. 949-837, 1-800-534-8255. Or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. Here is another number you can use, 949-6990. Share your thoughts with us. If I can again, offer up the greatest of appreciation and a semblance of a deep respect for all of us who participated in the electoral process. First and foremost, to all of the voters for turning out. I know in some areas it looks like it was a bit lower than we had in the past, and we can talk about why that is. But for us who went to the polls and cast our ballots, absolute civility, a great sense of respect for the system, the process, and it was amazing. As expected, it would have, been no different. To those who volunteered and participated, from the elections officials and others, to the policing and ensuring that we are, ensure that people have free, fair, and unfettered access to the polls. Now, there was maybe one or two who were overzealous, they were alleged, a news person with a camera as people exited Savannah, for instance, maybe not sure exactly what the process is, or maybe pushing the envelope, maybe even believing that the practice elsewhere, is one that we should adopt here. But for the most part, we're civil and responsible and respectful. And to the candidates themselves, yes, the campaign can get heated. There's much that can be said, from the platform and part of the process, but for the courage for participating and now finding a way to move it forward. As is the case normally, we expect that whatever the practices were, in the past, we heard Mr. Steve McField reference that it wasn't uncommon that people would buy drink, or they would be sort of encouraged to stand as, how do you put it? As stand-ins maybe for some other entity. Well, maybe the same happens today, not just in Cayman, but other places. So maybe going forward, we can find a way to make the country, again, that wonderful place that our ancestors would be helpful. Let's go to the phones. Good afternoon. 1-800-534-8255 or 949-8037 or 949-6990. Give us a shout and share your thoughts with us. If you want to WhatsApp, it's 925-3261. If you call any other number while you're on air, or even the WhatsApp number, I'm not able to answer it so that our listeners can hear you. If you want to send a voice note instead of calling us, well, you can send that to our WhatsApp, 925-3261. But we want you to engage us and engage the rest of our listeners, and certainly share your thoughts with us. And then perhaps for me personally, the biggest thanks to the Radio Cayman team across, all of the 3 islands just about. Because even though we were not physically on Little Cayman, I think we all mentally were escaping there at some point. But for the entire team, from Miss Norma, Miss Paulette, all the way down to, we were engaged and participating and reporting and collating and sharing and contributing. So big thanks to all. And to Miss Marzita for weighing in and helping us out, and to our panelists last evening. So very, very grateful. Now, let's get on with the business of running the country and keeping it safe, healthy, socially stable, financially secure, and above all, politically engaged. And maybe, as Miss Anika Conley said as she was, sort of leaving the studio after giving us so much of her time, that it is now for us, as the elected, to ensure that what we do is for the best interest of all of the country. And for us, as the electors, the voters, the citizens, to get involved, informed, and engaged, not just to be responsible in their civic duties, but to hold those elected accountable. Let's go to our phones. Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for sharing.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. This is Billy Sinamba. How are you?
Not bad, Billy. Good afternoon. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. First of all, let me congratulate you for all the interviews that you did with the candidates. You were thoughtful, you allowed them to speak, you did not take sides. I should congratulate you, really, just the quality of all of them.
Thank you.
And picking up with one of the ones that you had with another good candidate, Mr. Raul Nicholson Cole. I go back to one very significant question which you asked. I think he was talking about, he had some very good ideas as well. He was talking about how Caymanians in the past, were able to get jobs in the hotels, to be able to get contracts for buildings and so on and so forth. And he was saying that, look, we could bring back some of those days. And you asked him a question, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, And he was talking about being able to reverse that trend and get a fairer deal for Caymanians. And I think you asked him the question that, is it too late to do that?
Was that what I asked?
I think that's what you asked. You didn't say anything. You just asked. You said, "Oh, is it too late?" You know.
Yeah.
And he gave a very brave answer. He said, "Well, look, I mean, we want to be fair, of course, to everybody, but at the same time, we really have to ensure that the Caymanians are not being pushed out. Not that Caymanians want to push everybody else out." And to me, the result of the election goes back to that question.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The issues in the election were quite clear. There's the issue of how many starters grants are being given PR. The issue of employment, are Caymanians being pushed out? The beach access issues, the environment, the planning law, and so on. And I followed the election, I think, as well as anybody. And to me, the question I ask on election morning is to say, has anything changed? Is it likely that any of these policies have changed? We've got a few new faces and so on, but have we really voted in new ideas, a new fortitude, a new resoluteness to deal with the issues? For example, in my calls previously to you, I've talked about, of course, the need to amend the public service management law and the immigration law, and a lot of people have talked about that to give Caymanians a real advantage. And this morning when I called into OC's show, while it was Business Buzz stroke OC's show, there was somebody there who said, when I made the same point about Caymanians being given some advantage in employment, and his answer, I think his name was Simon, he said, "Oh, but you see, unemployment in other countries is worse than in Cayman. In Cayman, actually, employment is very good." I couldn't believe I was hearing that. And you see, this has been the problem. People in Cayman who can't get a job, whose kids can't get a job, whose grandkids can't get a job which they are qualified for, are being told, no, but other countries are worse. Or, as Mr. McLaughlin one time said in the Legislative Assembly, "Oh, but you should think about how this country used to be 40 years ago, if you are complaining now." And to me, that's where the problem is. I don't think we are addressing the issue. We are telling people the same excuses. And to me, the issue really is there going to be a new attitude, a new resolve to be able to address these issues directly, legislatively, and say, well, this is the way it's going to be, rather than having to go out there, Dwayne, and telling people, "Oh, the private sector must understand that Caymanians must be given preference." You are not going to preach them into giving Caymanians jobs. You are going to be able to legislate so that certain things have to be done. I just thought I should make that point, and see whether we people can assess whether we vote any new ideas or we are voting in the same old. I know that 3 or 4 people, for example, I am a big favorite. Kathy Wilkes, to me, is right up there in terms of my favorites. I like Sabrina as well and so forth. But is it possible that these people can come in and change the status quo, or they get swallowed into it and then become, like, at the end of 4 years, they won't know how they started and how they got it. So we'll see what happens, but that's the question I've been asking since the election.
Well, good questions, man. And thanks for sharing with that. And we'll pause quickly, take our break, and when we come back, more Talk Today.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
In the early 1900s, the Sister Islands enjoyed a relative prosperity, with the cultivation and subsequent exports of coconut being the primary industry, as Commissioner Sanguinetti would note during his 1902 visit.
Business seemed brisk. There has been a very large coconut crop, such as not born for years, and the carrying capacity of the island vessels to deal with the export of nuts have been shipped between October and February last.
The coconut industry would continue continue to expand with the expansion of plantations into large tracts of unused land.
Information from this historical vignette was sourced from Founded Upon the Seas, A History of the Cayman Islands and Their People by Michael Creighton and the New History Committee.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on this truly fantastic, edition of Talk Today post-election. We're into April already. So joining me is Mr. Loxler Banks. But we do have, sir, another caller online, I'm told. So let's go to the phones. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne, and good afternoon to your guest.
Hey, man, your voice sounds like you were watching a football match and cheering, man. What happened, man? Who playing? You good? Alright, Will. You there, my friend? Alright, we'll see. Oh. Hello? Yeah, hello?
Good afternoon, Sterling. How are you?
Good afternoon. Yeah, how are you, man?
Good. This is Giuseppe.
It's been one of those days, man. Good to hear from you, man. I hope you're enjoying retirement.
I am indeed. Thanks very much.
All right, man.
Sterling,
yes,
can
sir.
I talk about an event for the animal protection that we are doing this Sunday coming?
Because it's you, hey, Captain G, you can talk about anything, man. And if you got, news bears to share, even better.
Okay, it's for PAWS, the Protection Animal Welfare Society.
Right.
This Sunday, in East End by the Heritage Field, next to the Ruby's gas station, we are doing a community-free dog wash. All animals are welcome. We do the washing and the trimming and everything.
From what time?
From 9 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock. 9 to 11.
So just animals, I mean, you couldn't bring your husbands if you wanted?
You can bring everybody. We wash everybody, Sterling.
I told you would. So this Sunday, huh?
It's a free community affair.
All right, man. Well, we'll remember to announce it again for this Sunday, all right?
I appreciate it very much. If you can repeat it tomorrow, I appreciate it. Every dogs are welcome.
Perfect stuff, man. Have a good afternoon, okay? All right, all the best. And with that, Miss Loxley, we got a couple more callers. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne.
Yeah. Hey, sorry, I understand that you decided to go order lunch and didn't talk to us, but that's fine. Welcome, man. Welcome. Talk to us, man.
I just want to say congratulations to Northside people. They waited 16 years until they do the change. And finally, the change happened in Northside, and I think I'm very happy and pleased for what happened. And I think we have a good, nice guy who will serve Northside very well. I think that's the most thing I was happy about in this election.
Okay.
That we get a change in Northside. Also, I'm very happy to see that we get in new faces, and this is something I advocate for. And also, we have 5 women in the house. That's something very good. We want to see those ladies, especially Miss Heather Bowden. She is very intelligent, smart, good lady. And also we have Sabrina Turner. She is very intelligent, smart lady. We have Kathy Wilkes. I think she is very good lady. So we need to see those ladies in a ministerial position to serve.
But Jude, I mean, I know. No, you're right. It's good to see that. And thank you for sharing the congratulations. Let's get to the other two callers. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Hey, good afternoon, Dwayne. Good afternoon to all our listeners. How are you?
And to you, sir. How is things in Iraq? Good afternoon.
Yeah, things is actually the economy been quite good. Thanks to all the travelers from Grand Cayman.
All the refugees are here from Cayman.
We've been quite busy here in the Iraq. Business has been doing well, booming, thanks to the people who are visiting from Grand Cayman. I mean,
and thanks to the Brackers for that amazing receptive hospitality. You know, it's been this is what we need to do together to some inward investment and supporting our people. You know, we need to keep the money in the economy and show that there is beauty that we can share, not just extend it to those who we welcome to our shores. So good stuff, man. Good stuff all around.
Yes, sir. We have had some weekends, all like 300 or 400 will visit Cayman Brack. That's great for the economy. And I have met dozens of new people, especially up on the bluff. And I've taken some of them on tours and showed them the island. It was quite delighting. And nearly every one of them knows me via communications, either on the marine radio and for the ships or otherwise on the talk show like I'm on here right now talking.
Yes, sir.
So that's very good. So many of them, just about every one of them knows me via that kind of communication. And I want to say that yesterday I directed in a large ore carrier. Whoever seen it off of Spot Bay, it was passing by. And that was brought in to do a tribute and salute in honor of the late Mr. Yoka Dixon from Spot Bay, which was a long-time seaman, a great man, and also Chris Randall. That ship came by and did a salute and tribute, 15 blasts of the horn off of Spot Bay yesterday evening. And it's an ore carrier that many Caymanians have sailed on ships around that size, carrying iron ore, and it was loaded with iron ore pellets from Brazil going to the Mississippi River up to a port called Convent in Louisiana. And it was also in a tribute and salute for the richest man in Greece, which have died, the fifth largest shipping owner in the world. He passed away, and the funeral was held on Monday. That was the day before yesterday. So tributes were given from that ship in honor of the Greek's richest ship owner, Mr. John Angelikosis. And we had a conversation as to say a small world when I told the captain of the ship that did the salute that my brother has a tanker alongside, the biggest tanker that this richest man from Greece owns. He said, "Oh, what a small world." That's right, my brother, Captain Scott, is alongside the tanker that the Greek billionaire owns.
Oh, small world.
Incredible. Yep, that's right. So that was quite interesting. Here's a man from Cayman Brack speaking with the captain, and my brother is down in the Gulf of Mexico alongside the tanker docked up transshipping crude oil. Okay, change the story now. Back to the imports of gasoline. The last tanker came from St. John's, Antigua, direct to Grand Cayman. And we have been getting some cargoes in the past that was loaded in St. Croix, like some diesel would be loaded in St. Croix. That's the biggest booming area in the Caribbean now, St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands. They have the largest oil storage capacity in the Western Hemisphere. Imagine that, 34 million barrels crude oil, gasoline, and diesel. So the Chinese has a 10 million barrel storage capacity in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, and they have been sending Chinese diesel on super tankers to St. Croix and store it into the storage tanks in St. Croix, and then other companies been buying gasoline and diesel from there. So
you sure it's not the U.S.?
Pardon?
Is the Chinese, you say?
Yes, the Chinese, correct. They have a 10 million barrel
In St. Croix.
storage capacity in St. Croix, and it's a total of 34 million, which equates to 17 of the ULCC is the world's biggest tankers, can hold 17.
Right.
Take 17 of them to fill up the tank.
Right. Well,
So most of our gas and diesel been coming from Houston, some from Corpus Christi, and Baton Rouge, and the one came from New Orleans, but mostly U.S. ports. But we also got a shipment that came from St. Croix, and I remarked, I said, I hope I don't get Chinese diesel in Cayman Bright to run my heavy equipment on.
Well, Mr. Raymond, this is where you share, your learnings with us. So respectfully, so we can take the other two callers. Let's just go down. But thank you, sir, and have a wonderful afternoon as we go to the other call. Good afternoon. Thanks for sharing. Hey, what's happening, man?
Hey, I'm right here.
Yeah, man. Listen, I apologize, man. I haven't had a chance to even follow up with you, but I've had a couple of other things to do.
I know.
Yeah,
I know
man.
you've been busy, man.
Yeah, man. How you doing, man?
I'm fine.
All right. But talk to us. I got Mr. Loxley sitting and listening and giving me counsel, hopefully, keeping me from jumping over the precipice. But how are you, man? Talk to us.
You listening or he on the phone?
He right here, man. He right in the studio. He doesn't have anything in his hand like a tamarind switch or a choo-choo whip. All he has is just his good counsel and wisdom, and those steel eyes that say, "Listen, boy, got to make sure you represent." So all good.
Okay, well, let me repeat. Rasta told you 1,000 times. See, the herb is the healing of the nation. Understand? And this is, if you didn't hear it personally, I hope you're hearing it now. I hope you can listen and understand that, okay, these laws and the way the government have you abiding by these laws, that's all well and good, because some things in the flesh I can't control. But let me show you something. You see my mind and my heart and my morals and things like that. I in control of that, and I have good discipline to understand what is wrong and what is right. Understand? And I'm not gonna hold you up with no moral, no church talk. You understand?
Yeah, man.
I want people to understand that. You see, if you can live by yourself, you're either a beast or you're a god. Now, you see the herb? The herb makes you efficient enough that you can live by yourself. Now, being on this little island that you have to make up ways of making money, right? If the herb ever legalized on this island, they could never make $1. They couldn't sell a pamper, they couldn't sell milk, they couldn't sell meat. They couldn't come and say, "Oh, you need electricity, so you need some." All he bawling about the difference between the U.S. The difference between U.S. diesel and Chinese diesel. That same diesel no good for you. But you see this herb, we can burn that millions and millions and millions of years for it. And we can do the rich people's favorite thing. We can make toilet paper for them. We know how much they love toilet paper. We can make that for them.
Yeah, man.
You understand? And so I will let them know, and now and forever and forever and forever, that I don't fear no court, I don't fear no laws, I don't fear no judgment. As me and the God myself, I have to deal with and the ganja, the hemp, the marijuana, all that. That keeps me in control of everything. So I hope on learning and listening that you can play football 1,000,000 times, but you can't score a goal on this goal.
Yeah, man. All right, listen. All the best to you, right? And we wrap soon. Cool? All right, blessings, man. With that, Mr. Mike, let's pause quickly and come back, and you can enlighten us more as we share some. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
We are in an age of exponential change. The world is experiencing a technology boom where innovation is at an all-time high. What does this mean for small island nations? How can we adapt to the emerging digital revolution? Join 900 delegates from 3 Caribbean countries at one regional event to tackle the theme, Global Digital Disruption, Threat or Opportunity. The virtual RF Economic Outlook Conference happens on May 6th. Register today at rfeoc.com.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Between March 10th and April 15th, CUC's subcontractors, UMC and PSCL, will be conducting aggressive tree trimming between 9 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. on Shamrock Road from the Theolin L. McCoy Primary School in Boddentown to Lantern Point Apartments in Prospect. Some trees and vegetation on Shamrock Road pose an imminent safety hazard to power lines. Motorists should exercise caution due to temporary lane blockages. Landowners, it is your responsibility to maintain the trees and vegetation to avoid future tree trimming costs. For more information, contact 949-5200 or email service@cuc.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us as we ask you to weigh in and share your thoughts if you wish. But I'm always grateful and publicly want to say a special thanks to Mr. Loxler Banks. We talked about you going into I want to get the wattle. Can I say the wattle vault?
The wattle vault, yes.
Okay, I gotta say the vault with a V. I gotta say the vault with a W. The wattle vault. Can I say that?
Wattle vault.
There we go, the wattle vault. The wattle and doll vault. No, but this is where it's a treasure trove, right? Where we appreciate the recordings, whether it's in the Legislative Assembly or our political leaders, but even the commentary that helps to inform what is then transparent in society. But if we can go back 10 years or 100 years, sometimes some of those same things may still be an issue or still be very important or even more crucial at that point. The dump wasn't an overnight issue, irrespective of any attempt or roads or housing. But sometimes, anyway, you share with us, sir, because you hear, you talk, I listen, I learn.
Yeah, well, I think what we're about to try to do is run a excerpt. Actually, it's an edited excerpt from the candidates' talk in 1992, which is over 30 years ago, some 30 years ago, of what, during the election cycle that year, what they were advocating for, what they were seeing that needed addressing within the Cayman Islands community. And there are 3 candidates that you'll hear speaking. And we can listen to what they were talking about, what the needs that they saw within the community at the time, and sort of relate them against what we see today, and just visualize, are we making progress?
Sometimes to look forward, you gotta look back, right? All right, DJ Lynn, while that's playing, can you get us some chocolate? Let's go for it, sir.
We present now on this Election Day 2021 evening coverage of the day's activities and pronouncements, an edited narrative of what some of the candidates from the 1992 election who was seeking a seat in the Legislative Assembly, the Parliament, what they were advocating for and thought were the shortcomings of those days. These excerpts are from the 1992 Radio Cayman's Candidates Talk.
Candidates Talk, on which Radio Cayman invited candidates in the 92 election to give a 10-minute talk on their manifesto and to answer questions concerning their manifesto and plans if elected. Mr. Borden.
Well, in putting together my manifesto for this general election, I tried to consider every area of society that I felt at this point in time needed addressing. And I have come up with about 18, 19 topics from which I think will introduce a progressive system, both socially, economically, as well as politically. And in dealing with these, the first topic is transportation. I will propose that we research and seek improvements to the present road system to adequately fulfill the needs without going overboard. I also propose that government introduce a franchise for a modern public transportation system. At this time, those are only two basic areas under that headline. Two is education. I would seek the creation of a technical school to properly train those Caymanians for the positions as determined by a manpower survey undertaken by the Department of Labor. I would also propose a restructuring of the educational system to seek the establishment of a campus of the University of the West Indies and also incorporate the International College of the Cayman Islands into this structure to provide higher education. I would also seek the reestablishment of an island-wide sports competition to be held yearly. In light industry, I would cause the research of the use of light industry to utilize the present resources in the island in order to become self-sufficient in certain areas that would be indicated in a study of imports. I would also seek and provide the necessary incentives to encourage Caymanians to enter the area of light industry by way of government granting them development loans and the educational assistance that they need to do so. Under housing, I am seeking the approval for the construction of pre-engineered houses subject to stringent standards in order to fulfill the needs of the less fortunate. I am also requesting the institution of mortgage insurance in order that Caymanians may be able to protect the investments that they have in their homes. This can either be done through government or through a system set up by and through the private sector with the bank's assistance. I think the labor needs to be addressed, and we must ensure that Caymanians will be trained as necessary in the fields as required and shown in the manpower survey. I also seek the supplying and enforcement of the minimum wage scale as required by the labor law, and that Caymanians must be given first preference to any job shown in the Department of Labor.
Now, Mr. Borden, you mentioned public transportation, road improvement, and you also mentioned a franchise system for a public transportation mode. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, what I'm proposing basically is two franchises. One franchise to service the eastern districts of the country, the other franchise to service the western districts of the country. These franchises will be government...
Okay, welcome back, and thanks, and we will revisit that discussion in a minute, but just quickly, Mr. Banks, just hearing some of the comments from a candidate back in 92. This is 2021. Not dissimilar views being expressed today. Self-sufficiency, education, many of the things, mortgages, and I guess by default, access to housing. You could think that was a discussion about a manifesto of a campaign and an election today.
Yes, and I think the community has made a lot of progress. I think over the last 30 years, but with these recurring themes, are we doing the right thing? Are we on the right track?
Right. But then it's not just, as you mentioned, the recurring themes. I say this carefully because it's not a case of wanting to either A, be seen as living in a glass house and throwing a stone, but B, and more so, definitely don't want to be seen as throwing a stone in a pig pen and one that squeals. This is a collective issue for the aspiring politician or the elected politician, but as well as the community, the voter, to say, well, how are we addressing it? If I can just revisit the comment last evening and you referenced and Ms. Anika Conley's sort of response relative to traffic. traffic congestion, their impact on infrastructure. We can build roads. Let's say we have endless land, we can build roads. No, we don't. We don't have the resources, the land, the money. We don't have any of that. But even if we did, and you built roads, and so more cars go on the roads, at some point that amount of road is going to get congested, so you build more roads and more cars get on the road. So that isn't going to work. But are we unwilling, incapable? Are we unable to address it? And if so, why is that?
Well, I think one of the candidates in this election cycle made reference to that we seem to be adverse to planning, looking ahead, and trying to see what the needs are and how best we address them.
Okay.
Well, you take the traffic problem. Okay. You build a road, but if up ahead of building this road, or even simultaneous with it, you are increasing the usage of this road. Now, not to say things are going to change, but I think it's when they change too rapidly that we get into this,
But you reference planning, right? And two things immediately come to mind. One is the word provision. I don't know about any other household, but I believe if it was said in mine, it was said in everyone. Make provision. The older people would build their houses, and if they were thinking of extending the family or anything, they always made provision, that they could add on, that they could do something. Didn't mean they were going to do it, provision. So they were visionary, they were forward thinking, they had some idea of what's going to come. And I think back to what I'm told about the 1972 sort of development plan that we had. Good, bad, or indifferent. I was too young at that time to be waiting on any sort of input. But you hear many people today say, but only if we had, if only we did, if only. And sometimes when questions like I have asked, well, is it too late? That's not a rhetorical question. It's not an inflammatory question. It's a question to say, well, what do we do now? So back to your thing, planning. Some would share, like many jurisdictions, we would limit the amount of cars. We would limit the people who would have cars. But is that really the thing that we want to do? Because today it's a car that we're limited, but maybe tomorrow we're limiting, when you can go somewhere. And it's limited because you are tall or short or black or white or pink or green or orange. So are we just selfish and self-serving? Are we short-sighted and narrow-minded? Are we just greedy and egregious? What is the problem, if there is one?
Well, I'm sure from a lot of people's perception, there ain't a problem.
Ain't no problem. Just what? I got no.
But from some people's, yes, there is a problem when what I think a lot of Caymanians hold dear to their heart are being sort of, I guess, pulled away from them.
All right. I want to share something, and I have his permission. I thought at first if I were to share it, it would be sort of betraying the confidence or talking out of school, as it were. And he said no. And he said this to me repeatedly. So this morning, we had a quick chat, not like how we would in the past. And he's connected to the sort of the transportation sector, for instance. And he said, let me see now. I want to paraphrase, but I don't want to anyhow undermine what he said or misspeak in a way that it doesn't give the same level of importance. His views over time has been that we don't have public transportation. Even though he's in that sector, say we don't. The issues of liability is on him. He has to get his license, he has to be approved, he has to get insurance, and if there is something that's to happen, he's responsible. But yet, public transportation has a particular connotation. The enforcement or lax enforcement of any of the routes, of the behaviors of those on the routes, and all the other things. Now, for those of us who have lived, we heard Miss Conley. I only use her as a reference because she said it publicly. She's in school in Canada, and there wasn't a need for a car. If she wanted, she could get one. It wasn't that there are some places like Boston and Chicago, for instance. I'm sure the big metropolitan areas have similar issues. Owning a car and parking it in certain areas can be prohibitive. But you don't need a car if you can reliably, safely, and efficiently and effectively move about the spaces that you need to go. But in Cayman, I could walk to work. It'll take me a while, but I could ride to...
People used to do it years ago.
People used to do it. I could ride my bicycle to work. It'll take me a little bit less time. But is it safe? Is it acceptable? Is it... again, there's a thing I want to say he said, but I know that would not be the thing to say.
Well, it's a changing world.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that we can be assured of, that there is going to be change. But with change comes, I think, if we're doing proper planning, we can accommodate this change efficiently and maybe not get into these log jams.
The notion, the gentleman that developed Seaside was the sort of initially, I guess, one of the primary consultants, as it were, as an urban planner for the Camana Bay. And in the interview with him here, he talked about how wide the roads should be. And he referenced that, we got wide, straight, roads, well paved, 60 feet, 100 feet. But if they were narrower, they weren't as wide. And instead of being straight, they had undulations, a little bit of bends in them. They would be better. They would be safer. It would be better for all of the users. And intersections, I don't remember the numbers he said. I thought maybe 27 feet, but might have been 32, might have been 23. But the intersections were not as wide as they are now, which is the trend, at least we see in the US anyway. They're safer to cross. It'll encourage more pedestrian usage, even in our neighborhoods. Now, if that is the case, and if we notice through science, this is their studies, their transportation studies, why are we doing it the way that seems to be not the best, most efficient use? So let's say a 60-foot road has, 2 lanes or 3 lanes. What if that could hold 4 lanes in the same 60 feet? As long as it's the safe way to do it. And instead of the traffic moving at 50 miles an hour, but because it's smaller, you can put more, it moves at perhaps 30 miles an hour. And we get along. But then it comes back to us as the planners and the politicians, but also as the people using the roads, to be a little bit more sensible, a little bit more considerate, a little bit more cautious, a little bit more understanding. But what do we see? Well, something completely different.
Yep. Well.
I know. Why don't we take the break, huh? When we come back, we'll revisit the Wattle Vault, or as I would say for good West Bay, the Wattle Vault. The V and the W is one the same. The Wattle Vault. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
We are in an age of exponential change. The world is experiencing a technology boom where innovation is at an all-time high. What does this mean for small island nations? How can we adapt to the emerging digital revolution? Join 900 delegates from 3 Caribbean countries at one regional event to tackle the theme, Global Digital Disruption, Threat or Opportunity. The virtual RF Economic Outlook Conference happens on May 6th. Register today at rfeoc.com.
At Subway, we know a meal isn't quite complete without a side, and that's why we're introducing waffle fries. Subway's waffle fries are oven-baked softness with extra crispy edge, giving a satisfying taste to be enjoyed as is or in any of Subway's dipping sauces. Order waffle fries as a side item for $2 or make it a meal deal with any sandwich or salad with a 20-ounce drink and waffle fries for an additional $3 or a 30-ounce or bottle drink and waffle fries for an additional $3.50. Subway, eat fresh.
Why work with a Cereba agent? We can tell you that those letters represent a proven understanding of the real estate market in the Cayman Islands. But it also means so much more than that. Our trained Cereba agents are committed to ethics, integrity, and excellence of practice. It's all about confidence, knowing you are working with a qualified Cereba agent. As members of Cereba, your trust is our promise. To find a Cereba agent today or to search thousands of listens, visit Cereba.com. Cereba, the mark of excellence in real estate.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us, and thanks for being a part of what makes this country so much better. It's a beautiful place, and I hope whenever I share my love for it, invite you to experience it, that I do so respectfully, responsibly, and hopefully with a genuine invitation, and you accept it as such and partake, so that we can be here for another 100 years, and 1,000 years hence our ancestors can say, well, we did a good job. But Mr. Loxley sits with us, so the Wattle Walt.
The Wattle Walt.
Let's revisit our Wattle Walt. And here's a recording. Here's a recording.
We present now on this Election Day 2021 evening coverage of the day's activities and pronouncements, an edited narrative of what some of the candidates from the 1992 election who was seeking a seat in the Legislative Assembly, the Parliament, what they were advocating for and thought were the shortcomings of those days. These excerpts are from the 1992 Radio Cayman's Candidates Talk.
Candidates Talk, on which Radio Cayman invited candidates in the 92 election to give a 10-minute talk on their manifesto and to answer questions concerning their manifesto and plans if elected. Mr. Barton.
Well, in putting together my manifesto for this general election, I tried to consider every area of society that I felt at this point in time needed immediate addressing. And I have come up with about 18, 19 topics on which I think will introduce a progressive system, both socially, economically, as well as politically. And in dealing with these, the first topic is transportation. I would propose that we research and seek improvements to the present road system to adequately fulfill the need without going overboard. I also propose that government introduce a franchise for a modern public transportation system. At this time, those are the only two basic areas under that headline. 2 is education. I would seek the creation of a technical school to properly train those Caymanians for the positions as determined by a manpower survey undertaken by the Department of Labor. I would also propose the restructuring of the educational system to seek the establishment of a campus of the University of the West Indies and also incorporating the National College of the Cayman Islands into this structure to provide higher education. I would also seek the reestablishment of an island-wide sports competition to be held yearly. In light industry, I would cause the research of the use of light industry to utilize the present resources in the island in order to become self-sufficient in certain areas that would be indicated in a study of imports. I would also seek and provide the necessary incentives to encourage Caymanians to enter the area of light industry by way of government granting them development loans and the educational assistance that they need to do so. Under housing, I am seeking the approval for the construction of pre-engineered houses subject to stringent standards in order to fulfill the needs of the less fortunate. I am also requesting the institution of mortgage insurance in order that Caymanians may be able to protect the investments that they have in their homes. This could either be done through government or through a system set up by and through the private sector with the banks assistance. I think labor needs to be addressed, and we must ensure that Caymanians will be trained as necessary in the fields as required and shown in the manpower survey. I also seek the supplying and enforcement of a minimum wage scale as required by the labor law, and that Caymanians must be given first preference to any job shown in the Department of Labor.
Now, Mr. Borden, you mentioned public transportation, road improvement, and you also mentioned a franchise system for a public transportation mode. Tell us a little bit about that.
What I'm proposing basically is 2 franchises. One franchise to service the eastern districts of the country, the other franchise to service the western district of the country. These franchises would be, government would purchase the buses, or the brand new buses that have to be very, the modern type. They would then either lease these to the franchisee or franchisor, however it is, and they would then receive a royalty on the earnings made by these people, or they can either sell the buses as part of the franchise franchise and receive a set repayment plan on a per month basis or a per quarter basis. It is needed. I think it will relieve a lot of the congestion if it's a regular service. It must, in my opinion, it must be a 24-hour based service. It must be reliably run, and it must be franchised by a Caymanian. It must not be given to foreign entities, and it must be totally undertaken by Caymanians.
Following are my views on some of the major issues of the day. Education. For some reason, we are determined to have a tried and proven system of education, that is the GCSE system, dumped simply because we have suddenly realized that we are far away from Europe. I do not buy that excuse. However, since it seems that we are destined to have the CXC forced upon us, then the sooner we accept and implement it, the better it will be for our children. I favor a dual system until the new system is proven, and that is not impossible. It is the system in place in Jamaica and other Caribbean countries. What I'm more concerned about at this stage is the fact that we as a country are prepared to write off so many of our young people. If a child at the age of 14 has a behavioral problem, they usually end up being expelled from schools. Then what? Prison? I propose a community school system based on the military model. In other words, an environment of strict discipline. The Americans call it boot camp, and the English call it the Borstal system. Strict military discipline would be enforced, and the kids would have no option but to attend academic or vocational classes. This would eliminate the need for the courts to send our children to approved schools in the U.S. or elsewhere. The civil service. From before I joined the service a long time ago, and I am now a pensioner, I heard that the goal was to Caymanize the service. And today, there are less Caymanians in senior positions, and those that do exist have someone looking over their shoulder from abroad. This doesn't make sense. It is either that we are the dumbest people on earth, or all that's being paid to this is a lot of lip service. And I know we are not dumb. It is not unheard of for a person brought here to train a local to end up with a job and status. The way to stop this is to ensure that anyone brought here to train Caymanians must be given a non-renewable specific contract. If at the end of that contract period the local officer requires further external training, then it should be assumed the training officer did not do his job and should therefore be replaced. You see, in the past, all the training officer had to say was that the local is not measuring up and he would be allowed to stay here forever. For each senior position created, a local must be identified early to head it and trained to take over, and a timetable must be set for their taking over. But yes, that site can be developed to accommodate.
CAL, Cayman Airways, subject that's on all of the candidates' manifesto, and it's a subject that's on a lot of people's mind. You mentioned that you think that it should be downsized. What would be your perspective or your model of a Cayman Airways to serve the Cayman Islands?
I can foresee Cayman Airways going back to what it used to be. A two-plane airline servicing Miami, which has always been profitable, and Jamaica, which has even been more profitable and has been overlooked somewhat, in my view. The reason, as I've said, that I think Cayman Airways has to be retained is because we are dependent on the tax haven structure that we have. And even if persons don't use Cayman Airways to come here for that purpose, the people in Wall Street would want to know that if they need to come to Cayman, they are guaranteed communication to Cayman. Therefore, I support it. I support it wholeheartedly. But it has to be downgraded. And we do not have to take every route, whether profitable or unprofitable, that America offers in order to bring in another of their airlines here. Another thing that has been done in the past that has kept Cayman somewhat competitive was the awarding of hours foreign airlines to fly here. Now, we understand that you cannot stop other airplanes from coming here, but we can determine the times they come here, and certainly we don't have to make it easy for them.
Another subject I think that you dealt with in your manifesto is agriculture. You didn't say too much about it in your talk just a few minutes ago, but what's your views on agriculture in the Cayman Islands?
I think agriculture is viable if one looks at it from a long-term perspective. I don't think that we can stop the importation of goods at this stage, but I think with a proper program, long-term program, agriculture can be made profitable. But it must be understood by local farmers that it is impossible to protect their product. Their product is going to be sold twice as high or much higher than product brought in. So they have to farm competitively. Now, I think the government can go a long way in helping them. The government can provide tractors and a lot of technical advice free. But I think even now, everything that comes, all the local produce that comes on the market generally comes at a higher price. And I think that has got to be looked at and ways devised to make our local products more competitive with those stuff brought in.
I support a proper planning law, not unreliable policies and directives that constantly change according to who you are and who you know. We need a long-term development plan that controls expansion and growth. Properly controlled development promotes progress. Development must be in harmony with the environment and the people in order to preserve our country.
Adrian, in your talk, you mentioned Motion 390. You would be for rescinding that motion.
That's correct. I think it should be rescinded, and I think it should. I think the Finance Committee, with the Financial Secretary as chairman, should be enshrined in our Constitution.
You also mentioned ultimate power should be with the people. Can you tell us a little bit what you would envision as a system that would guarantee this?
Number one, through representation, through the right of the people to vote for their representatives. With the new draft constitution, the chief minister would get to pick his own exco as opposed to the democratic process which we've seen with our older constitution, whereas the exco is elected by members of the legislative assembly. I believe this gives too much power to one individual.
Ultimate power to the people, do you think it can function without a system of partisan politics?
I believe the Cayman Islands are too small for partisan politics. I believe that we need to bring this island together. We need to have individuals elected into government that have their goal should be the betterment of the islands. We've seen where political parties in other dependent territories have split the islands, where you've had brother against brother, sister against brother, family against family. I believe we all need to work together to make the Cayman Islands a better place for all of us, and it has to be a team effort to do so. And I believe that the party system will divide the island, where you have an opposition and you have a ruling party, and it will just divide us more.
So I read into what you're saying then, you do not support a ministerial form of government?
Not in the present form that has been with the draft constitution and that has been put on the other Caribbean territories. We know it's a fact that it hasn't worked well there, and I don't believe it will work well here.
The environment is an area that you've been involved in, I guess, most of your working life, and I suppose even before that. The tourism industry is important to the Cayman Islands. It's been said by everyone, all candidates and most Caymanians believe that. Do you see the environment that supports the tourism industry, the dive spots, the other spots that tourists may want to go and just relax and have a quiet afternoon? Do you see these areas in a state of deterioration?
Yes, we've noticed it in the dive industry years ago, and part of it's due to you take an environment that had never seen a diver before, which our reefs had never really seen divers before the 1950s, and we put hundreds of divers in there in the course of the years, and we noticed that divers and the boats that were taking the divers to the sites were doing a fair amount of damage, especially the anchors and the chains, and we initiated the first permanent mooring system, or one of the first permanent mooring systems in the Caribbean here, and that was years and years ago, and we've been promoting that ever since. The Water Sports Association, when I was president of it, was very supportive and definitely a backer of the government when we established the marine parks and the permanent mooring systems.
Have these measures helped quite well?
Yes, they definitely have. Whenever you practice any conservation methods at all, number one, you've realized that there is a problem, and second is you're doing something about it, and they have most definitely helped, yes.
All right. Well, when we come back from the news break, Mr. Loxton, maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the same issues then. Well, do you know?
30 years ago, over 30 years ago.
All right. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Follow Radio Cayman on Twitter. Radio Cayman on Twitter. All the latest information, breaking news, community events, and more. Follow us at twitter.com/Radio Cayman.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only two species that we have here on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
It is in the best interest of the people of these islands.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Shanda Gallego from Radio Cayman's newsroom. Chief Medical Officer Dr. John Lee reports 337 COVID-19 tests have been carried out since this was last reported on Tuesday. All were negative. There are currently 717 people in isolation. So far, 52% of the estimated population have received at least one dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, with 42% having completed the two-dose course. Turning to international news now, Derek Chauvin invoked his Fifth Amendment right not to testify on Thursday, and the defense rested its case as the trial of George Floyd's death neared its final stages. Closing arguments are set for Monday, after which the jury will be sequestered during deliberations. Chauvin, speaking into a microphone before the jury entered the court, said it was his decision, and his decision alone, not to testify. Questioning from his attorney, Eric Nelson, suggested a tense internal debate on the issue. France marked a grim milestone Thursday as its COVID-19 death toll exceeded 100,000, according to the French Health Ministry. France has registered 100,077 total deaths and currently has the 8th highest global death toll, that according to data from Johns Hopkins University. And Buckingham Palace has revealed the 30 people who will make up the congregation at the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral service on Saturday. Prince Philip, who died last Friday at the age of 99, is being laid to rest on Saturday at St. George's Chapel in Windsor, west of London. Arrangements for the funeral have been in the works for many years, but the memorial service has had to be stripped back in light of the pandemic. The congregation of mourners will only consist of close family and friends of Prince Philip. Those are your latest headlines here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. The phone lines are still open if you want to call and share your thoughts, and I'm grateful to Mr. Loxler Banks. Just those, little tidbits, a couple of minutes of listening to something. And I say this recognizing that we are very, very pressed for time in our society. We, without question, feel more rushed, more stressed. We've got more deadlines, and it's for every conceivable reason understood and accepted and justified. But just listening again to, candidates in the 1992 election saying things that, honestly, they were said yesterday, the day before. They're going to be talked about tomorrow. Those issues are probably worse now, or at least still important. Mr. Banks?
Yeah, well, I think it was mentioned by at least two of the candidates, the transportation thing,
Okay.
And there was a politician back in, I guess, 1970, I'd say 78, 79, who were advocating to put a overhead
like one of those roads, you mean, that go up in the air, we call it? DJ Lynn, you drive those all the time? A bypass, overpass, a freeway?
Well, no. It was like a transportation, a train.
Or monorail, like?
Monorail.
Okay.
Monorail. And they had it all mapped out along the way. At that time, the biggest problem was getting out of West Bay.
Right. So,
and they had it pretty well mapped out to jump into that. But of course, politics being what it was, it could not maintain the continuity that the politician was thinking of it.
I defer to you, and I say this carefully. Sometimes we don't necessarily listen, just like the monorail or any other thing, to the potential value, an idea, a suggestion, maybe because it's being said by someone, or unless someone says it, we're not paying attention to it, right? As colloquial as I'll get here. If it's, I'll defer to you, if it's of value. We heard three different voices from the who were candidates in the 1992 general elections. Do you think it would be helpful to say who they were to the listeners?
Well, it's
right.
One of them was, the first one was Mr. J.M. Borden Jr.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was ex-police. I'm not sure whether he's an inspector or... anyway, he was a
police officer.
Yeah. High-ranking police officer, Derek Ebanks.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was businessman Mr. Adrian Briggs.
Right. And just collectively listening to what they shared, politics and part of politics was discussed, the autonomy of the Legislative Assembly, of the politicians, the participation of the voters, food security through agriculture, issues like public transportation, education. I mean, there was so much that was there. I mean, the reference to mortgage protection insurance, for instance, the notion that we need to look at some sort of way for the minimum wage. We talked about, I think if I remember correctly, the whole idea of looking at the education system with respect to testing and the like. Those are things that...
trade schools and
technical
training, yeah.
And making sure that we enforce the laws. Seemingly we have laws, apparently, that Caymanians need to train and given the first, dibs at the jobs as they come available. Not saying we don't need, expertise in other bodies, but these are things, whether it was 92 or whether it was 72 or whether it was 2002, still relevant today?
They are.
Right.
And it doesn't, just looking at what you heard these folks advocating for in 1992 and looking at the same things today, it seems that we've not made much progress.
Okay. Can I not asking your permission, not inviting you to offer up any level of protection, and probably if I would ask good counsel, I would probably speak now and be ill-advised. But in 1996, when I contested a seat, out of what I think was a noble attempt, but now recognizing very naive, believing that too much is given, much is required, believing that you have to offer something, having benefited from a government scholarship, there were a couple of things that were pressing then. And those was maybe because of the households in which we have been raised, maybe the people that we associate with, maybe the sort of counsel, guidance, direction, mentoring, whatever. I felt that it was important to share some of that. And when I think that today, being inspired by what was shared, the notion that we needed to establish a university of the Cayman Islands. I just heard one of the fellows here take UE and ICCI and bring them together. Not unlike what I was saying, not that it was a novel idea, but then set up a think tank that proposes in an objective, impartial way. So I said ESTRI, the Economic and Social Development Research Institute, to be a body of knowledge, to be able to very professionally, very impartially comment on something. Not neutral, because, as much as I like cars, as much as I can press the accelerator neutral, the engine might sound good, but the car goes no way. But to be objective and to be impartial. So if we can do these things and look at the impact of our actions, whether it's more buildings, more roads, whether it's having to impinge on the environment, or whether it's, let's leave this public space so that it can be preserved, whether it's looking at food security through agriculture diversification. But anytime anything is said by anybody who is in favor of whoever's there or don't find favor with whoever's there, they ostracize, criticize, they marginalize, victimize, and at times, openly bullied and intimidated. And if they push back, oh boy.
And you get back to it's a political world, and all those things that you just, or some of those things that you just mentioned, it's a part of the political world, the political that we live in, and I'm not sure that we'll ever be able to change it.
Well, Madonna talked about is a material world, but he says a political world.
It's a political world.
Okay, so how do we then? And maybe I'll invite you, not necessarily, but I'll invite others, publicly and privately, help me, because I genuinely love this place, right? And sometimes you feel a calling and a yearning, you feel a desire to help, and you don't necessarily realize that you're not helping, even though you genuinely want to help. And then there are times you want to help, but you see what happened before, and there's a little bit of maybe reticence, simply because the last guy that stuck out his neck, what happened to him? And the one after that, and then the other one. And if nobody stands up and does anything, then nothing gets done. But then when you do, can you do it in a responsible, respectful, respectable way so that it's received in a like manner? But if there's anything that I know what makes me tick on a personal level, and I know what ticks me off. And arrogance and insolence seem to be two of those things. I say that carefully. It would be seen as a perception. Certainly there's a perception that some of us in position, appointed, elected, maybe it's a status in life, the financial wherewithal that we hold, seem to believe that we can act with impunity and we can do and say, because the position we have, the title we have, the respect we supposed to command, the money in our banks, whatever. And that level of abuse of position, office, title, power seems to go unchecked.
Well, it in the political world, democracy, democratic way, you vote for people who you would want to carry out what you feel, what the community feels is the best policy or the best way forward for the community.
Right.
But I think that aspect is lacking.
Right.
I mean, how many politicians ever come back to the community and say, we're going to love this hotel or we're going to love this to happen here? What do you think about it?
Right. Can I ask, and to our listeners, you can weigh in. I certainly want you to weigh in. Probably like you and like everybody else, we've received many phone calls long before the sun was up. Some of us probably never slept.
Yep.
Some of us probably engaged in different things, right? And last evening there were two comments that were made that I think are interconnected. One of our listeners reference section, and I pulled it up because I got it again 3 other times from 4 different people. Don't ask me how that happened. Section 124 of the Constitution says a party can be formed after election, right? And there's a process. There was a comment also made that there are 19 people. The ruling government of the day has 7 or 8 of those. And then 7 from 19, leaves a lot more, right? 12. I've had 4 people weigh in and say, well, what if the other 12, like the comment last evening, somehow get together, if they were independent, if they were part of whatever organized entity, not part of the PPM. What if they got together and somehow 12 trumps, 8 or 7 or, I don't know, maybe my math isn't good. Whenever you have math class, greater than, lesser than, and 2 numbers on either side of the symbol, where do you put the symbol, right? Well, 12 is greater than 7. Or 11 is greater than 8. Depending on how you work at it, right? So one individual that I messaged, I know she's incredibly busy today, responding to what she shared. And I want to identify the gender because I think too often we don't appreciate that our women want and are actively engaged in the political process. And this time around, unless I'm mistaken, we have 5 elected women in our house, which is the highest number that we've ever had.
I think that's a manifestation.
Yeah. And so this lady has provided great input over the years on many things. And when she messaged, she said, well, it is now for us as the voters in the 19 constituencies, but certainly in that, other 11 or 12, to now reach out to the now elected member for that constituency and say, hey, would you consider this thing? If I can borrow from what Mr. Panton said, what Dr. Steve shared last evening relative to Mr. Panton, Mr. Wayne Panton, former member of cabinet, certainly very knowledgeable. He is, by all accounts, intelligent and experienced, respected, respectful. You have Mr. Saunders as well. We have newly elected members, say, Miss Sabrina and Andre. And then in the other government, we got people like Miss Julie, who is incredibly talented, Mr. Moses, Mr. Roy, Mr. Hugh, even the Premier, Mr. Hadley. party aside, is there a way that we can, what was it, one of the candidates from the NATO forum said, the politics and the party system could be detrimental to the stability of the country. I paraphrase, right? But that was an interpretation of shared. How do we put aside that thing? Or is it just too political? You know what? We can't do it.
Yeah, well, it's, I guess, the human traits that we all drag around with us.
That's not what it is, huh?
And are we all capable of putting all those things aside and let's come up with a you want to call it a plan or a process forward that is the best for the whole Cayman Islands community.
I want to,
but relating that to what the community thinks and what they would like, not what the elected politician personally would like, but it is the community.
So isn't it then for the voter? So we've done our duty, and I could be wrong, but that was just part one. However many parts after that, we've now voted, and the person that we voted for may have been successful, may not. I'm not sure. But somebody has been elected, and I'll be the first to say that I have absolute confidence that we had a free and fair election. If there's something else otherwise, I would be probably the first time in my life shocked. We commend the people who participated, from the candidates to everybody else, right? So we had a free and fair election. We respect the outcome. We don't have anything to believe that it wasn't exactly what it was, right? That aside. If that is the case, then isn't it now for the voter to say, wait a minute, we've done the first part. Sort of like a football game. You put on your uniform, but you need to get on the field. And when you get on the field, well, you need to either win the toss and decide you're going to kick off or receive the ball. And then you got to play the game. And then you got to win. Then you got to go back and train harder and come back and win the next game. So just putting on a uniform, but even before you do that, you got to make the team. And you got to have a strategy. So the voter has voted, but now we think as voters that that's it. Is it enough for the voter to say, hey, you've elected, this is what I would like you to do? And that could be whichever. Will the candidates now who are now elected MPs, how will they respond? Will they be receptive? Will they listen?
Well, that's a good question. Will they? I mean, as you look back, have they been?
No, you remember you retired, and I'm aspiring. So maybe let's take this call.
Well, but it's a valid question.
A very good question, but one he didn't ask me. Let's go to the phones. Hey, good afternoon, welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon to you, Sterling Beer, and to Mr. Loxton here.
And to you, sir. Pleasant good afternoon.
To you both.
Afternoon.
We are Westminster parliamentary system. It's a party system. And even the Constitution more or less qualifies it as such. I'm saying
yes, sir.
The voters have done their part. They have elected. That's what elections are all about. And this is my opinion, but I think we have to remove the emotions from it, and we have to remove the carnival atmosphere. It's an entertaining thing. We can't get that away from human beings. But the reality is here now. They're elected. They must choose how they want to form themselves or put themselves forward. That you can have a government to present to the governor. I think we have, I don't know, Mr. Loxley, probably on Sterling,
yes,
this than I do. Don't we have a certain time that we have to present something to the governor?
I'll go ahead, Mr. Loxley.
I am not sure whether there is a stipulated time.
I mean, we shouldn't be taking too long.
No.
We should definitely, because it impedes and harms the country. We should be able to make up our minds, and I know that I've heard them saying it on the campaign trail, many of them, to the meetings that I listen to on the radio. God bless Radio Cayman, and that they've all been receiving calls, etc., etc. And we can see from the makeup what it should be, and a continuation of many good things, or whatever, and the other input from others. As you quite rightly said, there are some smart people there, And we have to move on. And I think we shouldn't have to get people to tell them what to do. They should have already made up their mind.
Can I ask you two things? First and foremost, you referenced the party system. And again, I'm not going to pretend that I know anything more than I know. The only thing we know is what we do. We don't know what we don't know. If we still have a party system? And I referenced a conversation again with someone else as early as, maybe 3 hours ago. We have one group of people who were well organized and they presented themselves and they were successful at polls in the form of the PPM. But if there isn't any other party or the like, if there's only one party in the system now, do we still have a party system?
Yeah, but the thing is this, let's call it alliances then, as it used to be. It was always a grouping of people.
No, yes, sir.
I can remember many times, and that was how it is. And you set yourself up with a group, and we're going to have to make it more official now.
Right.
It was before. What I'd like to ask Mr. Locks is, you said Bodden, you didn't say the first name, and at the time
he did, yeah.
Several Boddens.
No, he did. So
yeah, it was J.M. Bodden Jr.
Yeah, he did say, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's who I thought it was.
Yes, sir.
Was there anybody else? Because it seemed to be two different.
There were three people. Mr. Banks.
Yeah, there were three candidates. It was J.M. Bodden Jr. and Mr. Derek E. Banks, the former policeman, and Mr. Adrian Briggs.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got that.
Yes, sir.
There. That was the 92 elections.
Yes, sir.
92 elections.
Some I just put forward and so forth. Many of the things that we might put forward might not get implemented in manifestos because international conditions can vary. Things can change. And so, and in Great Britain, the minister in charge of overseas territories, we've seen several come and go in the last just 10 years or less. So, things depend on that a lot because of us being a crown territory or crown colony or overseas territory, whichever nomenclature you choose to put to it. But this is the reality. They have to get together, form a group that can be taken to the governor and say, this is it, this is who we are, the ministers, or we'll get ministers going, this is the speaker, I think that's the first thing, who will be speaker, we have decided, and so forth, and get together and let's get going soon. But, you can't sort of say, well, this group get together as independents and say, I have this independent thought, and this is what my constituents want, and this is what mine want, and 19, that doesn't work. It can't work.
But sir, isn't that democracy, though? Respectfully, Mr. Mick, isn't that democracy? I mean, the voters went out, again, maybe this is naive, but let me invite you to guide me. The voters went out and cast their ballots, and the people elected, and in most cases, or in a number of cases, a fairly close margin in some, but very decisive in others. So wouldn't it now be incumbent, actually expected, that the voter now says to the politician, hey, this is what we need you to do. You're elected to do this thing. You don't go about and do your own thing and don't come back to us. Isn't it now the voter to remain engaged?
They just said it. They elected them. So
yeah, but not to dictate. They elected them to lead and to be responsive and to listen. Isn't that what the voter... I mean, maybe I don't understand democracy.
No, maybe I don't either. But my take on it is this. We have had elections. We can't expect them to keep coming back and say, well, this part of the manifesto, do you want me to...
No, sir.
Do that?
Can I... Yeah, may I ask you, and please understand that only because I have incredible respect, and it's my perception that you have not just only the experience, but you have the willingness to share and the expertise to back it. So what I'm asking is, because we're laboring on this antiquated, really thing to be destroyed sooner than ever, this Westminster system, but that's what we are now, we have one party in government, and then we have others who are not formally, seemingly, publicly part of this party. Isn't it now for them, if there isn't any other thing, to know somehow organize if the party system is going to be effective, so that you have a government and an opposition, the shadow ministers, the government in waiting? And if it isn't it now for the voters to say, hey, you need, as the elected MP for my area, to remember that we voted you in order for you to be responsive to what the needs of this constituency and the country. I mean, that is what I think it is. But if I'm wrong, let me know, because I probably need to
to have more meetings with the people right now, go around and have meetings in each constituency again, or invite them into the house before they've been sworn in. Do you want them to say they haven't been sworn in yet? This is...
So do you think, sorry Mr. Mickey, do you think respectfully, right now, that the government has been formed? Do you think that there are some turtle meat and cornbread and some breadfruit being cooked up and some deals being hashed? I mean, what do you think is transpiring now?
What do I think? It is not for me to think. I just told you that. We have already just cast our vote.
Okay.
And therefore they must now act and compromise and say what they're going to do and come back to the people.
Right.
That's why you elected them as adult individuals. Yeah. That's why you don't have children there or young people. You must be able to make up your own mind and say, this is what I'm sure the people saw my manifesto. They elected me. Now I'm going to act and I want to join with you, but this is what I bring to the table.
So,
the other one will say the same thing. And we will get together and see. We present to the governor that this is what we do.
Yes, sir.
And the opposition,
so two last things then. Of those that elected, how many of them were independent? Not a rhetorical question. So we've elected people. How many of them were either aligned with a known party or were presented on the ballot paper as independent?
That's what they did. I saw it was all independent, a lot of independents.
Right.
And then you had the progressives getting all their
they got
all of them elected, right?
Right. So they got 7, and then they got, in my mind, 8, because respectfully, Mr. John was part of the cabinet, so therefore, by inference.
That's not for me to say.
No. I understand that. Unlike you, though, I mean, that poem about yours is not to wonder why, yours is just to do or die. I never really subscribe to that. But any other thoughts you want to share? And thank you for letting me engage you, sir.
It's just that I'm saying that it's time now for them to sit down and get together. What are you going to say? It's turtle meat or it's...
Yes, sir.
It's so hard to get now. Or a national dish, and soon...
Prayers for Mr. McLaren.
To the environmentalists, we may not be able to eat it anymore. If we keep giving in to them, we may not be able to go
it was
anymore.
Yes, sir. It was just
anyway, I won't say anymore.
Yes,
it
sir.
might be dangerous to me.
Have a good afternoon, sir.
Let's be thankful that they have been elected peacefully and a democratic way.
Yes, sir.
And let's get on with the business of trying to run our little colony or territory, whatever you choose to call it. Let's get on with it.
Yes, sir. Blessings to you. Well, Mr. Loxley, I mean, and maybe there are two things, right? As someone said, you probably marked your cards. Or it may be that we are getting to the point where we understand the importance of courage and conviction. We understand the importance of not just being brave and bold, but respectful and responsible. Perhaps we are getting to a point where as a people, and again, this is just my view, for the democracy to be healthy, for the politician to be effective, we as voters need to be engaged and involved. And we can't expect them to do everything. We talk about the district councils, but are we prepared to make sure that there's a representative, democratic representation of our particular constituency? And when the politician doesn't do something, we didn't give them any advice, we didn't draw alongside to counsel, to guide, to help. We're going to criticize them.
But you look at, you reference the district council now.
Yes, sir.
I think that is something that is enshrined in the Constitution.
There shall be a district council, but that's about it. Then there's a district council law to say how it should be set up.
Yeah.
Really?
But the Constitution came into effect, 2009?
Yes, sir.
So that's,
a long time ago.
Yeah.
But
is there a district council in any of... Well, I think Northside has some...
But there were some questions as to whether there was the legality of it in terms of the Constitution.
Yeah.
But the Constitution said one line was one sentence, a couple of words, there should be a district council established. And then we did a law. There are those who ask, well, should that then be the subject of cabinet, or should it be more of a democratic thing? There were those who were campaigning who said, well, the district council would be a great thing because then as the elected MP, you can get input, and the job of the MP is that much easier because you have this district council. I sort of take a different view than the caller last relative to what I believe the elected official sort of role is from the perspective of governing. It's not to dictate. It's to be
responsive to the community.
Yes, sir. But also being decisive enough with sufficient expertise and experience to say, okay, we're going to build a bridge from here to Cameron. Sounds great. I would love it. But when we build it, we can't build it out of wood. We got to build it out of something else. Or, wait a minute, we can't build it. Maybe we need to do a tunnel. Or we say, well, no, we can't do that. We just need... So having the sense and the wherewithal to say to the constituents, no, that's not feasible, but here is why, and here is how we can do it, as opposed to pandering, implicating, and trying to pacify everybody from the special interest to the voter with the loudest bullhorn. It's going to be an interesting time for us, sir.
Yep, I think over the next 3 or 4 days, yes, we'll see how it shapes up.
I'm going to make an invitation for some cassava cake. I think that's what I need. What do you think?
Well, put a little turtle meat along with it too.
I'll just suffice with the cassava cake right now. I love this place, and I trust and pray that I'll continue to have the health and the wealth, not just financially, but, you know.
Well, I think we got a lot to be thankful for.
Yes, sir.
You know, even with all of what I guess some people, a lot of us think it's not going right or not. There's a lot of things that has gone right, and we got to give the political credit for what they've were able to accomplish for us or help us accomplish.
Yes, sir.
But
and again, I mean, I think that the conduct at the polls on election day, the campaigning leading up to it, yes, it was entertaining for some. Others were probably, you know, very, very, very aggrieved, as it were. But it was also a semblance of a healthy democracy. And like how the populace, all of us, voter and non-voter alike, responded, you know, to what the government said, you know, should be the protocols relative to how last year our interactions with one another, despite the financial cost, the social cost. We need to be commended, just like we need to be, as voters, going out to the polls in a very civilized, organized, obedient, respectful, responsible manner. Let's do the same going forward. And let's draw alongside our politicians. We know them. We need to still make sure that we are willing to assist them.
I think there just needs to be more contact between the people of governance and the community. That's the only way that the democracy can work efficiently.
Right, and that accountability isn't just us holding the politician accountable. It's us holding each other as voters accountable, as citizens. I mean, this is a beautiful place, man. I tell you, it is as noisy as a Bacchus may be on a public holiday. It's still a nice place. You know, as overrun, overcrowded the public beach may be on a cruise, because it's a cruise ship day. It's still a nice place. But it won't continue to be that way if we're not respectful and responsible as the inhabitants of this place. And it doesn't matter whether you carry a gun or wear a badge, your title is this, that, or the next thing. We need to be civil and respectful, one to the other. Mr. Loxley, I always appreciate your counsel and guidance, sir. And again, you know, to the election machinery, the elections office, and all and Sunday, like, I think we can hold our hats high for another, you know, peaceful general election. And maybe each time that we go to the polls, whether it's a by-election, a special election, or a general election, that our voter turnout will be, you know, incredibly high and very impressive. Let's get to 100%.
Well, I think it's the sign of a healthy community, healthy democracy. When I think what we had 70 some.
I looked preliminary. Some numbers were 70s. Yeah. You know, I always used to see the 80s.
Basically, totally probably round figures. In the mid-70s.
Mid-70s,
close to 70s.
So let's get there.
Not many communities or jurisdictions, you know, can get that many inhabitants out to.
But then the flip side of that, that's down from the historical highs, right?
Yeah.
and we can probably justify it.
But one thing,
yes, sir.
And it came up this morning, I think, on the early morning show. The thing about the demographics, because that is going to be important.
Yes, sir.
You know.
Yes, sir.
And I believe that one of the election officials called in and basically said that they would sort of look into that to see if they can pull it all out.
I would like to see that, because I gather from just casual observation that a lot of people inside that 300-foot area were either working for, the election machinery, part of the candidates thing, or voters going to vote. And just observing there, you see a lot of first-time voters. You saw a lot of younger voters, and that was, well, to me that's healthy. So it would be good to officially see what a demographic looks like. Well, much to be said, much to be had. Let's hope that we don't become so egotistical, arrogant, condescending, and disrespectful that we take the big stick and don't realize that sometimes there's somebody else with a bigger stick too. So what they say, you're big, bad, and you're ugly, but you're not that.
No, we just pray that it all comes out, and
Yeah, well, I don't subscribe to what that poet talked about. Yours is not to wonder why. Yours is just to do or die. Nope. Time now, my friends. You don't need to go gently in the good night, but you got to work hard, work together, be responsible and respectful, and remember that we are our brother's keeper, as Mr. Art reminds us in the mornings. But equally, too much is given, much is required, and sometimes it's not just your money, but it's your metal. So measure the man, by his metal, not his materialistic manifestations. Have a blessed Thursday afternoon. Join Ray Bank and myself tomorrow for See What I Was Saying. As he said, eaching, mosquito too. Until then.
The one thing that before we go,
yes,
like to mention, Saturday will be 45 years since Radio Cayman first went on the air, and I think there's going to be a little, talk about that on Saturday morning sometime.
All right. You know what? Radio Cayman is an institution that has served this country in immeasurable ways and has contributed significantly to its development and its democracy. And I'm honored to be a part of it for now. All right. Thanks again, sir. And to our listeners, join Mr. Art in the morning for the record. Come back for more of us as we have Ray tomorrow for See What I Was Saying. Right after the midday news and midday meditation. Thanks to DJ Lynn for putting up with us and to all of you for participating. Until then, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. And Royal Fidelity Bank and Trust, money at work.